is Valerie Cook, and I finally finished all my observations for child growth. I started my articles at the Arkansas School for the Blind. I went to Miss Brandy Burnett's first grade class. I highly recommend the School for the Blind. It is an amazing school. Before I went, I was so nervous. I did not know what to expect. I thought the hallways were going to be bland and the children were going to be so sad and upset, and I was really worried and I did not know what to expect, but I showed up and the staff was phenomenal. They walked me to my classroom and showed me around. The hallways were bright, like purple walls, and they had art on the wall just like normal classes or normal schools do. The students in Miss Brandy's class were amazing. They were very sweet and very interested in me. They wanted to feel my hands and feel my nails, to ask me if my nails were painted, and ask me about my ring and if I had kids or if I was married and all these other questions. They were really sweet and very welcoming. And she had 5 students, and some of them were completely blind, while others could partially see or couldn't see very much. But they started off the class with reading Braille. They each had a paper that Miss Brandy handed out to them, and they would go by and read with their hands and read it. One student had regular paper with large words on it that she could read, but it had to be very big for her to read. But she had been already proficient with Braille, so she was working on her reading with the large text. Then they moved on to this machine that looked like a typewriter, and it had 7 buttons on the front, and they would stick their piece of paper in the top of it just like you would for a typewriter, and they would type Braille. It was amazing. I did not know how they did that, and it was amazing because these students could type so fast. And think, you only have 3 buttons, and the one in the middle was a space button, so they would have to press down 5 buttons to get 1 letter. It was amazing. They could type whole sentences and did a whole page, and then they wanted me to type my name, so they gave me a little sheet that helped me out to do it, and they let me type my name. I don't know if you can see it, but I did my name and we did some of their names. It was really cool, and I loved how involved they had me. That class was amazing. I recommend the School for the Blind to everyone. If you're going into education, you need to go there. It was amazing. Can't talk about it enough. It was great. My next observations, I went to Des Arc Elementary School. The first thing I noticed about Des Arc was that they each of the teachers had a microphone necklace, and then they had a speaker on the other side of the room to where I guess all the students could hear their voice, but it kind of made it eerie in there. Like, it didn't sound good to me. And plus, their rooms were just concrete, so it's not like the sound was being absorbed by anything anyway. I went to Miss McMullen, sorry. I went to her kindergarten class, and it's so hard to be invisible in kindergarten class because they just want to show you everything and talk to you, and it's really hard to be invisible, but they were really sweet, and this class was so quiet. They were the best behaved kindergartners I have ever seen. They were so quiet and so respectful to each other, but they started the class by going to sit at the carpet in the front of the room, and they did how many days of the year and then how many days left and are they halfway there yet and things like that, and then they worked on the calendar and their alphabet. What I did like about their alphabet was they didn't just A, ah, and then move to B and do the same thing. They sang it in a song with a good tune. It was really fun. They were all like dancing and clapping with the alphabet, which is not normal to me, but it was really good and they enjoyed it, so that's all that matters. The thing that I didn't like is that on her carpet, she would do one lesson on this side, and then she'd be like, okay, everybody stand up and turn around, and she would move to the other side of the carpet, which maybe she was trying to wake up the students, but it just kind of disrupted them and got them going and bothered them. I didn't like that. Next at Des Arc, I went to Miss Childers' class, and it was a first grade class. These students, when I first came in, they were doing what do you call that? Go Noodle, the dance videos. They did about 3 of them. It was a Friday, so that was their test day, and After they did Go Noodle, they all sat at the back. At the back of her room, she had a carpet with the easel, and that's where they did like their carpet learning, which I thought was different because usually that's at the front of the room. But I like that because the kids wouldn't get so bored of just sitting at the same spot, looking at the same thing in the room all the time. She got more use out of her classroom, but her classroom was very cluttered. It was not organized. It was kind of scary in there. But the students went over the alphabet. They did the same thing that the kindergartners did, and then they went over some of their spelling words. The thing that I thought was weird about doing their spelling words right then is they went to sit down, and they went right after and sat down and got their offices out and did their spelling test. So it's like they should have had more time between their review and their spelling test because they just went over them. So I feel like they would all know them. How could you get them wrong? But she was a lot of fun. She had an intern in her class who just kind of sat back and observed and did just as much as I did, which I thought was kind of strange because I hope when I get to that level I'm doing more in the classroom. But I don't know. I don't know her story, but I thought that was strange. Next, I went to Wooster Elementary School, and I loved this school. It was amazing. I went to Miss Cochran's second grade room, and as soon as I walked down the hallway, they gave me a map to all my classrooms, which was cool because they didn't have to have a student show me or a teacher show me where to go. So they just gave me a map and highlighted where to go and when to be there and all this stuff, which was nice. They were very prepared for me and expecting me. But Miss Cochran's room, when I first came down the hallway, her door had the red paper on it and looked like a barn door, and it was so cute because I loved it. And then I went in, and she had boots, and she had handkerchiefs, and over her bathroom she had a tin ceiling or a tin roof with the old wood columns, I guess you could call them, I don't know, over her bathroom. So it was really barn and country, and it was cute because it's in Wooster, Arkansas. So I thought that really fit the school. The school in general, though, is very nice. It's very new. It's got windows all through the hallway, and it's very tall ceilings, windows all in the classrooms. I love the open windows. I feel like I got so much from this school, and I think it's because of the windows. I love windows. But Miss Cochran, she recommended me go to all the classes I can to get any education, any classes I can take them, because she said she's gone to so many that she thought she wouldn't get anything out of. They just didn't sound good, and she went and she got so much out of them. So she recommends that I go and get as much education as I can. It would be great for me. She says do it. She showed me, when I first walked into her class, she had a little girl at the front of the room. This was a second grade classroom. And she had a little girl at the front of the room who was explaining the assignment, and she would say, we're going to cut this paper, and tell the classroom that, and the class would repeat it, say, we're going to cut this paper, and she would go on, and they would repeat and repeat until the assignment was explained. And then she would say, muters off, and the class would stop repeating her, and they all went right to work. No questions asked. They were good to go. Another thing Miss Cochran showed me is, you know how teachers, when their class gets out of hand, they try to say, hey class, or something, you know, they just kind of have one of them things to get their class's attention. Well, Miss Cochran, she said flat tire. Just quiet, flat tire, just said it. And the whole class said, shh. It sounded like a flat tire in the classroom. I loved that. It made my day. It was so cute. And all the students, I mean, they weren't laughing about it. They were just like, yeah, it's a flat tire. We got one in the class. We're all quiet now. Let's go. Miss Cochran worked with their reading and stuff and had them write sentences. And she was really good with these students, very patient and fun with them. They loved it. After that, I did third grade Miss Rainey's room, and she was a science and social studies teacher. For each grade, they had 3 teachers. She was for science and social studies. Her class started out, students were kind of everywhere in her class, running around everywhere, and I really didn't like that. But they started out on Chromebooks. They had the big Chrome tower where they were all stored, and they would go get them, and then they would sit down. She told them, do this assignment, and then when you get done with that, you can do this test, and then when you get done with that, read a book. So all these students, after about 15 minutes, were all doing something different. And they were all running around, going different directions, all up. It was wild in there. And I really didn't like that because that disturbs the ones who are still trying to take the assessment. I didn't like that. Then they were all wanting to play this game. I didn't catch the name of this game, but it was each child logged in on their computer and went and sat on the carpet at the front of the room. And then the teacher, Miss Rainey, went and logged on her computer and pulled it up on the projector. It was questions. They were going over recycling and renewing and pollution, stuff, that kind of topic. They were going over that, so it was questions about this that was going to be on their next test. And they would answer it on their computer, and it would come up and tell you who was right, and they were all competing and got to come up with their own cute usernames and stuff. So they really liked that and had a lot of fun. Next, I went to Miss Miller's 4th grade classroom. I really liked her setup. She had her class, all the tables were arranged to where they weren't too close and distracted by each other, but they were still together enough to have a class discussion and be involved. They started out reading a history book that they had been working on for a while, and then they moved on to a science assessment out of the book where they did a section review. And the class stayed very quiet as she did this, and she took 4 girls to the back of the room at her horseshoe table, and I guess they were at the lower reading level or had learning disabilities, but they worked together to read the few pages, and then they worked together to answer the questions. What I did notice was that while she was doing this, there was one student who was up in the bathroom for probably 15-20 minutes of that class time, and she was taking notes about it and writing it down, but I just feel like if he's causing that problem, she says he does this often, I feel like she should have him at that table back there with them, so he's not. He just locked himself in the bathroom and was in there playing. You could hear him. I really didn't like that. I figured she should take care of that. And next I went to Miss Frey's class. She has a really long last name. I'm not going to try to say it, but all the students called her Frey. She was 5th grade teacher, and the class started out doing presentations, and one thing I noticed that kind of gave me an idea was some students would present. They were presenting with the trifold boards or a PowerPoint or just on the projector with papers. But I like that there was a variety in it, but one thing I would change is that some of the students would be whispering up there and you couldn't hear them at all. And I was sitting midway in the classroom and I couldn't hear them, so I know the students in the back couldn't hear a thing. I was thinking maybe you could think of some sign to do with your children to tell the presenter to turn up their volume. I thought that would be a good idea. I think she really needed that. But she had a crime scene set up in the front corner of her room with the yellow crime tape and everything, and she had the blue paper on the floor with red paint handprints and clubs and names of people who died from the Boston Massacre. And she separated her children into groups, and they each tried to find out, well, they had to determine whether the Boston Massacre was an accident or started on purpose. The children really liked this. They really liked that the crime scene was there, and even I thought that was cool. I kind of wanted to participate in this activity. But next I went to Greenbrier Middle School because Wooster did not have a 6th grade. They only went to 5th, so I stayed in the same district and went to Greenbrier Middle School. I was in Miss Seibert's 6th grade class, and she was in a computer lab. I was really nervous about 6th grade because they're bigger than me. I knew 5th grade was as big as me, so I figured 6th grade would be a lot bigger than me. But they were great. They were a lot of fun. They were each their own person, definitely. A big change from 5th to 6th grade that I could see. She worked on binary codes with computers and got beads together to make a necklace with their name out of the binary code. And the kids were really involved in this activity. They were working together very greatly. It was a really good observation. That's all I have for this class. I really enjoyed these observations, especially Wooster. I saw some really great classes, got some really great ideas, and I really loved it.